like to first go through the syllabus and explain how this course has been structured. So let's go to the published version. Can you see my screen? Just confirm that, because I don't. Zoom is not giving me any feedback about which screen is being shared. Okay, because I'm with a dual screen and Zoom doesn't give feedback about which screen is being shared. So I won't describe myself. You can just read a bit about me if you'd like. I'll just say that so I'm a professor at the University of Coimbra in Portugal, and I'm a professor at the Department of Informatics Engineering, and I mainly teach courses related to human-computer interaction, including virtual reality. I also teach web technologies, so HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And I have taught also different programming languages like processing or Java. And you probably have heard of those or even used those. So regarding this course or this module, as these are called in USJ, the idea behind this module is to first to introduce virtual reality and to talk a bit about what virtual reality is and some of the concepts surrounding this technology. But most of this module is actually very practical, and it is about creating your own virtual reality experiences. And for that, we will use a platform which is called A-Frame. And basically, this is a framework based on HTML, so it's web-based. And it's a framework for creating virtual reality experiences that run on a web browser. So it's really cool because it's very accessible. So anyone that has a browser can run your experience, your VR experience. So, and for you as a publisher of a given VR experience, you only need to have a web server and basically write a web page. So although it's not mandatory, it's desirable if you have some basic understanding of HTML and CSS, and if you have also some experience with JavaScript, that's also good. If you don't have experience with any of those, it's still okay. I'll probably tomorrow I'll do a very quick introduction to HTML, and basically we'll try learn by example. I have lots of examples to show you, and so even if you don't know HTML, don't worry about it, because I think we'll be able to learn by example. And my examples, I have lots of very simple examples. So I think that will be okay. But if you do have experience, then you'll be able to understand things maybe a bit quicker. So as for the module aims, I already kind of covered this, but one of the aims is to give a very broad view of what virtual reality is. Because there's most people have a kind of a predefined idea about what virtual reality is, and it's often very narrow view. So one of the aims of this module is to give a broader view of what virtual reality is, and also to promote some critical thinking about virtual reality, so that basically, it's important that you are able to analyze a virtual reality experience and relate it to the various concepts that we'll go through. So it's important, and it's one of the aims of this module, is to provide you with those conceptual tools to think about virtual reality experiences. But also, obviously, an important aim of this module is to give you technical knowledge and expertise so that you can design and you can implement your own web-based virtual reality experiences. So as for the main contents, so here just in very broad topics, we'll begin with an introduction to virtual reality, and we'll do this today. We'll talk about the main concepts related to virtual reality. We'll talk about what is called the reality-virtuality continuum. We'll see some virtual reality technologies, so some commercial devices that are currently out there that allow you to experience virtual reality. Even though in this module, particularly in this format, so in this kind of remote format, where we don't have access to the labs, so we won't be using much technology. Many of the virtual reality devices that you have in the USJ lab. So we'll be mostly focusing on desktop. So we'll develop and experience our virtual reality environments through the desktop. Although if you have one of those mobile headsets where you can just put your smartphone in, then you will also be able to use those to experience the things that you do. And I'll show you in one of the next days, I'll show you one of those headsets so that if you have one, then you can see how easy it is to use one of those. But so we won't be using many of the devices that we could be using for virtual reality because we are in a remote setting. But still, it's important to know what kind of devices are out there and devices that are commercially available. So we'll talk a bit about that also. And then, so the main core of this course will be the topics related to A-frame. And we'll go through from the basics to kind of intermediate A-frame concepts and topics. So we'll learn about creating interactive virtual reality environments, adding animations and adding sounds as we go along and as we progress in this course. So as for the structure of these classes and the structure of the evaluation, so obviously the lectures will be provided through this video conferencing system, and in general I'll use the class time for in this first day. Mostly I'll use it for presenting and discussing theoretical concepts about virtual reality, and I'll be using slides for supporting that presentation. In a moment I'll let you know where you can download those slides. And then in the following days, so the class time will be used for practical demonstrations of A-frame. So I'll go through the chapters of my online course. That I'll also show you that in a moment. And I'll go through each chapter and basically I'll demonstrate the things that we'll be focusing on that day. And then the rest of the time, so I won't be presenting all 3.5 hours, of course. Um, so I'll be using the first part of the class time for these demonstrations, and then the rest will be time for you to go through the chapter again and go through the examples and try to implement the exercises that are asked at the end of each chapter. And so the rest of the time I'll be available, of course, to help you and to answer any questions and any doubts that you have while you go through that chapter and while you try to solve the exercises. There will be a presentation in the final day. Actually, I have here. This is. I have to correct this. I think I'll have to check this because I had planned for 2 presentations, but I think I simplified that in the end. And I think I'm just asking for 1 presentation in the final day. So I'll correct this. I'll have to check in a moment what I have wrote as the final evaluation. But so there will be at least one class, and the final one, where I'll ask you to make a presentation of your project, not about the final state of your project, because probably at that moment it won't be finished. But to present the current state of your project and to present your ideas regarding your project, what you are planning to implement, what you have implemented so far. So please keep in mind that at least in that final session, you'll be making short presentations about your project. I'll also ask you to deliver short exercises. So each chapter in my online course about A-frame has a few exercises, and I hope I'll ask you to send me links through Google Classroom. I'll ask you to solve those exercises, and at the end of each class, at the end of each day, to send me the links of your solved exercises. So this will count as part of the evaluation, and it's basically to make sure that you are progressing continuously during these days. So they are typically very small, very short, easy to do exercises, and basically they try to make sure that you understood what is being presented in that chapter, and that you are able to apply it in a practical exercise. So they are all practical exercises about A-frame. I'll also ask you to develop a project. And so this project, it seems from the description in the syllabus, it might seem a complex project, but it's not. I have just, in the syllabus, I have described 2 deliverables just to make sure that you work on your project also throughout the following weeks. And so just make sure that you don't try to implement the projects just in the final day, because I don't think that would be advisable. It's much better to try to think about the project and implement small steps throughout. That will make sure that you have a much higher quality project in the end. But so I'll talk a bit about the project in a moment. But in my view, it's a simple project. It has two main parts, but in terms of implementation, it's not a very costly, let's say. And finally, I'll also ask you to write an essay, a short essay about virtual reality technology. And specifically, and I think you'll find this interesting. At least I hope you will. Please let me know if you feel otherwise. So the point of this last part of the evaluation, this essay, is just to make sure that you are able to think and to critically think and to write about those virtual reality concepts that we'll be discussing today. And so what I'll ask you is to watch one science fiction movie that I'll give you, I'll assign you the movies. So I'll ask you to watch one of these movies, and they are all movies that somehow they feature some kind of virtual reality technology. And basically, I'll ask you to write a short essay about that movie, making sure that you relate the concepts, the virtual reality concepts that we go through during these classes, and that you relate them to what you see in the movie. So basically, it's an analysis of the movie, but using the concepts that we'll discuss in this course. So again, it will be a short essay, and I'll give you a template, document template for this later on, maybe in the beginning of next week. And this, I'll show you the deadlines in a moment. Both the essay and the project can be submitted, so the final submission is after our classes end. So you have, I think, plenty of time to do this. So I'll go through now through the assessment, so the evaluation and the percentages that each component has. Just this is, of course, you can then go through this in your own time, and if you have any doubts about any of these, please let me know. You can just send me an email, for example. But I'll just go through the main things. I won't read everything in detail. So one component is for attendance and participation, and this is something that FCI enforces, so it's kind of mandatory. So I'll check during each session. I'll make a note of your presences here in these remote sessions and your participation in these sessions, and this will count towards this 10%. Then there's what I call here classroom work. Basically, it's about delivering those short exercises about A-frame. Today, we won't have any exercise, so you don't need to deliver anything. But on the sessions that we talk about A-frame, that we talk about specific chapters of that online course that I'll show you in a minute, then you should deliver through the Google Classroom, you should deliver the links to those exercises. You should do this daily, so at least on the days that we have classes. And you should try to deliver at least one exercise for each chapter. And you should also try to deliver at least 10 exercises. So in total, at least 10. So you'll see that some chapters have like 5 or 6 exercises. Some chapters only have 1 or 2. You should try to deliver as many as possible, but making sure that you deliver at least one for each chapter that has an exercise at the end. And then the project, as you can see, is the bulk of the evaluation in this course. So 50%. And it's divided, as I told you, it's divided in two parts. Although it's just one project, I kind of defined two deliverables because they can be implemented kind of independently. So one deliverable, the first one will be creating a simple 360 photo tour in virtual reality. And the other deliverable, so the final one, will be creating a completely synthetic environment, something completely made up by you and created using 3D models, primitives that you can use in A-frame. I'll show you how to do that when we start talking about A-frame. So the project is done individually, given that this is a remote, this remote mode. I think it's better to do things individually. And of course, the project has been, the dimension, the size of the project is perfectly suitable for being implemented by a single person. So the project actually, it will be assessed through a number of parameters. And that's why I told you in the beginning that this might feel like a very complex project, but it's not. So it just have many small components that will be evaluated, that will be assessed independently, but it's actually it's not a very large project. So each deliverable will be assessed. So you have one deliverable is the first virtual tour, the first 360 tour. Then there's the final presentation on the last day, and this will be just 5%. So again, so that you don't worry, this presentation is about the state of your project at that last day. So it doesn't need to be finished by the last date, which will be on the 12th of June. So you just need to present what you have already done and what you plan on implementing next. And then there's a deliverable 4, the deliverable 3, which is basically the complete project. So the 360 tour plus that completely made up scene, and you basically will send me your project, so the source code for your project, and this will be within the percentage of the project. This corresponds to the bigger part. And then there's also a final deliverable, which is actually something very easy to do, which I call final documentation, and it's basically a video documentation of the project. And I'll show you some examples. Actually, I think I have already uploaded 1 or 2 examples of videos that document one of these projects. So basically, you have to, you can use some kind of screen recording, probably using voiceover to describe what people are seeing, and just go through your virtual reality environment and explain that, like creating a video that could be shared with other people so that they understand what you have what kind of virtual reality experience you have created. And so and this is 10%. And then finally, so the essay will be 25%. So it's in between, so it's not as much as a project, but I think this is also kind of an important thing for you to demonstrate. So this critical thinking about VR concepts, and so it's a bit more than the classroom work and the attendance. So in terms of assessment, these are also all the fine details. Please read this carefully, and if you have any question regarding this evaluation, please let me know, and we can discuss this in. If you have any question right now, you can just let me know, and we can discuss it. If not, you can send me an email or any other way, and I'll try to reply and clarify. So as for the main learning materials, as I told you, so I kept mentioning a virtual reality online course. So this is a course that I have done specifically for this. So an online virtual reality or A-frame course that I have created specifically for this module. So specifically for you, and it's you can access it here through this link, and this link I'll show you in a minute. It's also in Google Classrooms. As for those conceptual topics about virtual reality, I'll be using mainly three sources of information, 2 or 3 sources of information, which are also easily accessible. And we won't go, so these are books, so these are books about virtual reality, but this module won't be going through all the chapters in this book. So essentially, for both of them, you could just read the first chapter, which is the chapter that presents and discusses the virtual reality concepts that we will also go through through my slide presentation today. But so these are books that you can find online also. So they are this one from Laval, you can access it through his own personal page. And also this one, Understanding Virtual Reality, is also available. I think it's freely, publicly available. At least I can access it through my university, but I think it's publicly available. I think you can access it even if you are not in the university. And you can just read the first chapters. Obviously, if you have time and you are motivated and interested in learning more about virtual reality, then I'd recommend that you read a bit more. But for this module, it would be enough to read the first chapter of each of these books. There's also a paper, which is this one, which will be the topic of one of my slide presentations, hopefully today or tomorrow, if we don't have time to finish today, about a specific thing, a specific concept in virtual reality. It's not mandatory that you read this paper. It's a scientific paper. It can be a bit hard to read. Although again, if you really are interested in virtual reality, then you should read it as much as possible. So my presentation will probably be enough to understand this concept. But if you want to go deep, to dive deep a bit further, then you can read this paper. And again, it should be accessible for anyone publicly through this link. There's another paper. This one is completely optional. It's also about the same concept, but it's a bit more recent paper. And then finally, the last entry here in these materials is a virtual reality movies database that I have created. You don't actually need to go through this database, because I'll be assigning for that essay that I'll ask you to write, I'll be assigning each one of you one movie from this database. But if you are curious and if you like science fiction, um, then you can go to this page and you can see a list of movies that are somehow related to virtual reality. Some of the movies, it's not obvious that they are related to virtual reality. But if we think a bit more about it, then in all of them, the technology that is somehow used could be described as a form of virtual reality. So again, if you are curious, if you like science fiction, if you like watching science fiction movies, then you can go to this online database. And for some of the movies, then I can provide you with the links if you can't find the movie online. So this covers, I think, the syllabus. So for the session plans, I haven't finished the session plans. So only the first three or four have entries here in the session planning. But basically, we will go through that online course. So most of the sessions will be about that, and then I'll try to fill this in as we go along. And of course, we may need to adjust in some of these sessions. We may take a bit more time, so there may be slight adjustments to this. So this is just a guide. So no questions here in the chat. Before we start with the presentations of virtual reality concepts, so the main topic for today, I would also like to show you, to quickly go through the material in Google Classrooms. So there's a link. This is my view of the dashboard. I'm sure your view is slightly different, but you should have a button that takes you to the Google Classroom. And if you go there, I have already enrolled all of you in this. I guess you received an email. I'm not sure how that works. It's actually the first time I'm using Google Classrooms. So if there's something missing here, so if there's something that I'm not doing correctly, please let me know and I'll fix it. But so if you go to that Google Classrooms and if you go to classwork, there are already a number of entries. And I'll go through each one of them. So the first entry, so the first topic is called virtual reality concepts. And this basically contains the Google slides that I'll be using today, and probably I think I'll need some time tomorrow also to finish these presentations. So these are Google slides. Then another topic is the A-frame topic. And here basically I have a link. It's the link to the same online course that I have just showed you. I'll just open this really quickly now because tomorrow we'll see this in a bit more detail. But as you can see, it's an online course, so it's an online material with the menu here on the left, with the various, what I call these chapters, although this is not really a book. Some of these chapters are just introduction to the platform itself. Then most of them are chapters about A-frame and how to do some specific thing in A-frame. And so basically you have a description with lots of examples. Some of these chapters, they have videos that can help you understand how to do something in A-frame. And in the end, also, by the way, for each chapter, you have a table of contents here on the right. And then for most of the chapters, not all of them, one or two chapters don't have exercises because it wouldn't make sense. But most of them, they have exercises that I ask you to do. And for most of the exercises, I have an example. I give you an example of how the exercise should look when it's done. So it's online. You don't need any password to access this. If you go through the link, you can just start reading this. So this A-frame topic is just a link to that online course. Then I have a topic here for the essay. It's empty for now, but I'll put inside this topic a link to the template, and I'll still have to figure out how to do this. Then I'll also put here which movie you should watch and you should analyze for the essay. Then there's a topic called classroom work. And this is basically an assignment. And again, this is the first time that I'm using Google Classrooms. So if anything is not working correctly from your point of view, please let me know and I'll try to fix it. But this topic is basically for submitting the daily exercises. So each exercise, we'll see that tomorrow, each exercise will have a link. So you'll basically have your own web server. You'll be creating a copy of that online course, and that will give you an online platform where you can publish your own virtual reality experience and exercises. And each exercise will be a file that will have a link. And you should submit here in this classwork at the end of each day the links to the exercises that you finished. Okay, just so that I can keep track of your progress. And also, if you finished an exercise but you have some doubts about anything, during the delivery of that assignment, of that exercise, you can also add notes that you'd like me to clarify, for example. And I'll try to see these submissions each day so that I can either reply immediately or maybe next day I can clarify.